First off, I want to thank the owner and operator of Tudor Steakhouse for providing us this facility. I was just in a forum of the Hospitality New York Alliance that really consists of, like our owner here, those who own restaurants and bars and clubs, nightclubs. And as you can see, so many of them are padlocked or they're not running at full capacity. Well, guess what? When I'm mayor of the city of New York, we're opening New York City up. Yeah? We're back in business. You're not going to see what you see in Times Square now. You go to Times Square at 12 midnight, there's more people in downtown Buffalo than there are in Times Square. It's a ghost town. How can you possibly say to the world that this crown jewel of ours, New York City, which has been at the epicenter of entertainment, culture, and the world's economy, has come crashing to a halt? Well, we know why. One person only. Comrade Bill de Blasio, the part-time mayor, the dope from Park Slope. He has taken the Miley Cyrus wrecking ball to the city that we love. Now, I have a feeling it's because when he kicks back, as you know, he wakes up late, can't go to his favorite gym any longer. You know, the Y in Park Slope, oh, woe is me, woe is me. And then he gets to Gracie Mansion, which we pay for, at about 8 o'clock at night, and with his wife, you know, sitting on the back porch, smoking that Maui Wowie and Hindu Kush. And then the next day, it's the same thing. You remember when we were growing up, they used to say the toughest job in the world is to be president of the United States. The second toughest job was to be mayor of New York. This guy is the biggest slacker, deadbeat, and gold brick that I've ever seen in my life. And we see the results. And then he's teamed up the two Italian stallions who are like geldings, Cuomo and de Blasio. They have destroyed this city. So what is it going to take to revive it and resurrect it? Well, as Arthur was mentioning, I started the Guardian Angels in the 1970s, 1979 to be specific. I was a night manager of Mickey D's McDonald's in the Bronx. I started with just 13 young men, later to be joined by young women, blacks, whites, Hispanics, Asians, and we began to patrol a subway system at night that had no uniformed police officers because it was fiscal cutbacks. So the mayor at that time, Ed Koch, he had to eliminate uniformed police officers at night on the subways, which was an invitation to commit crime. And the gangs and thugs who were out there plentifully at the time took full advantage of that. I wasn't going to wait around. I wasn't going to point fingers at Ed Koch or other politicians to waste the time. You know what they say is, well, you know, I promised you that I'd give you a crime-free city, but tough noogies, I'm now in office for the next 4 years. This always happens. They promise everything, and we get disappointed, we get negative, and we leave. And that's what happened in the 70s. 1 million New Yorkers picked up and left. We talk about 300,000 New Yorkers leaving this summer. 1 million people left in the 70s. Why? Crime, poverty, arson, abandonment of property, people deciding not to pay their rent, like AOC all out crazy, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez suggests. You imagine this. This woman is telling people, even if they have the wherewithal to pay rent, don't pay commercial rent, don't pay residential rent, drive the landlords into the sea, and the city and state will inherit the property and they'll create affordable housing. I'm going to wait for the city or the state to create affordable housing? The city and the state need to stay out of our way. Government creates impediments. And we have a class of people, many hipsters and millennials, who don't know what happened in the 70s or 80s, who have been raised to believe that government should take care of you from the cradle right to the grave. I mean, think of it. You're born into the world, boom, boom, boom. They pat you on your dupa, your tuchus. You got a diaper on. Now, government, if you unfortunately happen to die, you die with a diaper on your mouth. So you've gone from the baby's diaper on your tuchus to the diaper on our mouth. Yes, government. Yes, government. Government is omnipotent. Government is pretentious. Government is full of bull feathers most times. So Curtis Sliwa's mayor is going to go back to my roots. I didn't wait for government to solve the problem of crime on the subways and the streets. I took it within my own means because one man, one woman can make a difference. Government certainly can. They get enough of our tax dollars. But oftentimes, they end up creating resentment. People are not empowered. They feel hopelessness and despair. If you create programs that empower people, in which they take a negative and they resolve it themselves with the help of government, then you have a much stronger community. You're not going to have people who are divided by color or ethnic background or by politics. Look at the hate and scorn in our city. Hate. Is there anyone that we can say is bringing people together? Did you see what happened this summer? I know, I was right in the middle of it, June 1st and June 2nd, with the Guardian Angels. Why? Because Comrade de Blasio ordered the police to stand back. And the looters and the shooters came into the city. And you remember Macy's Herald on 34th? They looted everywhere. The largest store in America, right? Yeah. The Grand Dame of stores. Looted. They knew it was going to be looted. That's why they put all the plywood up. Why did all the other merchants put plywood up? Because he knew they were going to be looted. And what did our officials do? What did our police chief do?
Yep. Correct.
What was that? He took a knee? Surrender. Here, take the city. And they did. And the only thing standing between them and property and product and harassing and attacking people were the Guardian Angels. Why? Because that's our code. We don't surrender, we don't retreat. And we have to re-empower the police to do exactly what they were trained to do. The men and women of the police department, remember, after 9/11, they were heroes, right? Heroes, right?
Right.
COVID-19, heroes, right? Heroes. They were essential workers. Many of them got sick. Many of them died. Remember? At night, 7 o'clock at night, yay, cops. A few days later, give another finger. Hitting them in the head. Attacking them. Vandalizing their property. And instead of the mayor and the feckless city council saying, oh, no, defend yourselves, they told them to retreat. And the mob got more empowered. And then like locusts through a cornfield, they took over our city. And now look at the police. They're afraid to respond. They're not proactive, they're reactive. And the city council has the chutzpah, the coulions, to once again do what a lot of politicians do, Republicans and Democrats. Do as I say, but not as I do. So, they defund the police, and yet they have armed security. Think of that. They defund the police, yet they have armed New York City police officers protecting them. So many people say to me, well, how come you're not into defunding the police? I said, well, how has it worked out so far? Let's look at the results. Crime is skyrocketing, there are drive-by shootings, people are being pushed into the tracks in subways, randomly attacked. Ethnic attacks now against Asians. Before that it was Jews. Next week it'll be some other ethnic group. Because there's lawlessness, there's anarchy. So let's look at basic common sense solutions. It's not a political solution, it's a common sense solution. You have an emotionally disturbed person. That person needs to be in a mental health care facility getting their medicine. They are not going to be roaming the streets, living in the subways, and being a menace to themselves and society when I'm mayor of the city of New York. Off of the streets they go into a mental facility. Now, if we found somebody vomiting in the street, we would summon an ambulance. They would take that person to the ER. That person might actually be remanded to the hospital because the diagnosis was that they need more severe care. We never think about doing those who are mentally ill. We actually have politicians who say, oh, well, you know, it's their American right to be able to live in the subways, to be able to wallow in their own urine and their own feces like a baby, like a little baby does. And these politicians, they have no idea how these men and women have lost control of their mental faculties, and some of them their physical faculties. They have a mind of a child. And we're not doing anything to help them. And they call themselves liberals and progressives. How is that progressive? How is that liberal? How is that helpful? You're hurting these people and you're hurting society. Number two, the homeless people. They're everywhere. Now, nobody wants to say this, but I talk to the homeless all the time. I know a lot of the homeless. Where you from, pal? Newark, New Jersey. Where you from, Patterson? Where you from, Philly? How come you came to New York City? Well, because they don't have shelters in our cities. I don't know if you're aware, there's a federal court order that's been in existence for decades, that if you show up at the Port Authority, you take a PATH train over from New Jersey, and you declare yourself to be indigent, without housing, a place to stay, without shelter, like the little baby Jesus in the manger, right? You're out there in a barn, you got nowhere to go. The City of New York taxpayers must supply you with room and board, and all the amenities that go with it. Now, how crazy is that? Now, if you happen to be poor and impoverished, and you don't have two nickels to rub together, and you happen to be in Asbury Park, New Jersey, where the shelter is limited, and the amenities are almost non-existent, where do you think you're going to go? New Jersey Transit, next stop Port Authority. Next thing, you're declaring yourself indigent, and guess what? They put you up in a hotel now. A hotel. COVID-19 hotel. They call it a COVID-19 hotel.
Luxury.
All right. Let me give you an example. Upper West Side. Overnight, they jammed these single able-bodied men into 4 different hotels. No transparency. They didn't alert the community board, the elected officials. Just jammed it down their throats. That's Comrade de Blasio. He couldn't care jack diddly squat about the people of this city. I can't wait till he's out of office and I'm being sworn into office. Because I'm going to say, hey, pal, go back to Cambridge, become an adjunct professor at Harvard University, destroy your future generation, but get out of our city. Get out. You're not wanted. Do you know of any other person who is so hated, despised, and loathed? All you got to do, go up to a Democrat. I've been talking to a lot of people since I'm running for office, Republicans, independents. And even if they disagree with me, I say, but we can agree. The one person who has single-handedly destroyed the city is Bill de Blasio. And not only do they nod their head, but they give the fickle finger also. The Bill de Blasio salute. So now, think of it, the homeless. We have shelters for them. De Blasio has spent our money to build 80 shelters to be put in neighborhoods that don't want shelters there. What is happening to these men and women and children? Are they getting treatment for what ails them? Are there programs? No, they're being warehoused. Basically, check in by 10 o'clock at night. You got to make curfew or you lose your bed, and you're out the door at 7 in the morning. Now, where are you going to go at 7 in the morning? In the neighborhood of the shelter that's just been built. What are you going to do from 7 in the morning to 10 o'clock at night, since many of these people have no negotiable skills? It's not like there's high employment. There's 13% unemployment in New York City. We are recovering at a much slower rate than any other large municipality. So what are they going to do all day? Many of them have alcohol problems. They have drug problems. They have mental health issues. So we let them roam about. Now what are you going to do when you roam about and you have all this baggage? You're going to get into trouble. You're going to get yourself into trouble. You're going to create trouble in the neighborhood. You're going to create trouble for your other fellow homeless people that you live with. That's all going to stop. There used to be a place called Camp LaGuardia. Are any of you familiar with that? Upstate New York, Orange County? It was started by then Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia during the Depression. He took single able-bodied men that couldn't find employment here, that were living in shanty towns. He shipped them up there. It was farmland. They had to grow their own crops. They had to become self-sufficient. Many of them had drug and alcohol problems. Yes, in the 30s there were drug problems, not as severe as now, but there were drugs. And they had to dry up, get clean, be rehabilitated. You can put a job corps up there where they learn a negotiable skill. There's always a demand for carpenters, electricians, plumbers, people who do heating, maintenance, repair, air conditioning. Google hires computer programmers. You know that 1/3 of the computer programmers of Google are high school graduates? High school graduates. Where did they learn the skill, computer programming? Not in our public school system. They learned it in a professional tech that we pay for with Pell Grants. So instead of when we have a captive audience when they're in junior high school or high school teaching them these skills through more vocational training, we wait for them to get out of high school with no education. Basically, do you have a heartbeat? Do you inhale? Do you exhale? Hey, you get a general diploma. Social promotion. Kick them upstairs. Get them out of the system with nothing for them to do. And some of them become homeless. Some of them become destitute. Some of them end up in double trouble. And we don't at all seem to say, okay, we need to rescue these human beings. Now, to the criminals and those who commit crime, we got to come at them with a fist. But for those who are destitute, poor, and impoverished, we have to embrace them. We have to help them. Those are our brothers and sisters. To the criminals, though, they're destroying our quality of life. They have no regard for anyone in our community. It's Darwinian, survival of the fittest, by all means necessary. And we have plenty of jail space on Rikers Island. There's only 5,000 cells that are filled up. There's 18,000 cells out there. So let me see, I didn't do too well in math. 18, that's a hell of a lot of cells, right? Wasn't 13,000, right? I've actually been in Rikers Island. I'm the only candidate who's been locked up 76 times. And in the course of that, being given wooden shampoos. Oh man, I can feel it now. I had a mild concussion last week. It reminded me of all those wooden shampoos. Concrete facials. And I'd be sucking concrete. This is when the cops hated the Guardian Angels, the first 13 years. They thought we were vigilantes, hell angels. Thought we would end up taking their job. And their unions were like, sick 'em, get 'em. Especially that big mouth Slwa. And oh boy, did they. So I love these politicians talk about Rikers Island, right? I said, have you ever been in Rikers Island? Well, I had a visit. Did you ever stay in C-74, C-76? What's that? I stayed in the dorms there. Imagine 40 gabons. They put me in a dormitory. There's one little correctional officer, usually a woman, with a body alarm. That's it. 40 guys that you wouldn't want anywhere near you in your neighborhood. And they're all together in the dormitory with nothing to do. And then all of a sudden, hey, we have a new inmate with us for the next few days. Curtis Sliwa, superhero. What kind of treatment do you think I got by those 40 individuals? And by the way, do you think that one correctional officer was able to stand up to the mob that wanted to rip me limb from limb? Of course not. So I had the experience of being in there. I've had the experience of teaching there. I've had the experience of actually doing a broadcast from the belly of the beast, Rikers Island. No, we're reopening Rikers Island. We're not building community jails. Where are we going to get the money? Community jails? Yes. Since when? You get to choose where you're going to be locked up? I'm in Brooklyn. I committed a crime in Brooklyn. I don't want to go to Rikers Island. I want to be locked up right here. Are you out of your mind? We let the criminals advocate for what lockup they should be in, and then they say no solitary confinement. You've heard that, right? Oh, solitary confinement is brutal. Do you know what Punk City is? Oh, excuse me, protective custody. When an inmate, male or female, is being harassed or is a snitch, because remember the culture of the streets is snitches get stitches and end up in ditches. And they mean it. They'll slit your throat. So you got to take that inmate, separate them from the general population, and isolate them in their own 8x4 foot cell. You segregate them. What is that? They're isolated. Wow. Isn't that the same thing? So you do it for the most vulnerable inmates or the inmates who are helping you because they're snitching. And yet when you really put somebody in there who's a danger to themselves or somebody else, that's no good? Now, how would I know that if I haven't been in a segregated unit, right? You think any of these politicians would last a day in lockup? Of course not. So that's why having me as mayor, I can at least be fair. When a cop is over the line, which some cops do, they violate rights, I'll remember those wooden shampoos. Wait a second, pal, you look like somebody who's given a few wooden shampoos. But I also know the con of the streets, where everyone claims they're a victim. I'm a victim of police brutality. And you go to Rikers Island, and when I was first on Rikers Island, I didn't do it. They unfairly locked me up. I said, how could this be? At that time, there were 18,500, mostly guys locked up, some women. How could it be that 18,500 guys all said the same thing? I didn't do it, they set me up. Yeah, maybe a few of you, 18,500? So, we are a society here in the city that has gone completely overboard for the criminals. For those who want to destroy America. They hate capitalism. They say it, but we don't want to hear it. We don't want to hear it. Oh, burn it down, burn it down. Excuse me, what are you going to burn down? All these buildings. And what's going to happen with the people? That's up to them to run and flee. And we actually would give a bully pulpit to somebody like that who wants to destroy the city that was the crown jewel, the grandeur, the glory of New York City. How many people were out there and leave it to Beaverland, Father Knows Best, Little House on the Prairie, and dreamed of coming to New York City, right? Are any of you here who dreamed when you were a little child, I can't wait to come to New York City? Now, it's I can't wait to get the hell out of New York City. Florida is making love to their ear. And if it's not Florida, it's Texas, or Tennessee, or Georgia, or North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia. People are fleeing. And I wish them no ill will, unlike this mayor, who basically says to them, hey, make sure the door doesn't hit you on the way out. Or who says about charter schools, I hate charter schools. He said this publicly, de Blasio. Charter schools has been one of the best creations to give children an opportunity to get an education. That's the way you achieve equality, through education.
Opportunity.
And yet you create a charter school that creates that opportunity. And what do the officials do? No, we got to cap the charter schools. Now, when you look at these officials, you say, where do your children go to school?
What a question.
Where do they go to school?
What a question.
Well, they always reverse it. They say, well, Curtis, where do your kids go to school? All three go to public schools. Anthony goes to high school, Carter goes to junior high school, Hunter goes to elementary school. Now, it doesn't mean you shouldn't send your kid to a parochial school or a private school if you have the wherewithal. I wouldn't blame you. But a lot of these people who have created this image that charter schools are bad, that it's somehow taking away from the public school system. They have their own agendas. But I always like to be the Weisenheimer and ask them, and where do your children go to school?
And there's private schools.
Exactly. They're privileged schools. Oh, they got scholarships. Really? How did you afford your children going to that school? Because obviously, it's part of being wine dined in parking lot, which is part of the political corruptive practice. So as mayor, I'm going to be fair and square. I understand teachers. You know, we're beating up teachers now because they don't want to go in the classroom. That's because of their union. I call it the union of failed teachers because their leadership is failing the children and families. And the members are not revolting. But have you ever been in a public school classroom? Have you had to see what these teachers have to deal with on a daily basis? On a daily basis. And then you have others out there who are saying, not enough. Jumaane Williams, who's the public advocate, he wants to defund the police, defund prisons. Do you know where Jumaane Williams, to residential, there's a lot of space now. How come you choose to live in Fort Hamilton? He says nothing. Talk about hypocrisy. And this is the guy who's leading the effort to take all the security officers out of the public schools, 90% who are minorities, 70% who are women, and basically leave the schools without any security and take the metal detectors out. Now, I always say to the politicians, you're going to take the metal detectors out of the airports? Oh, of course not. Madison Square Garden, Citi Field, Yankee Stadium? Of course not. City Hall, years ago, there was a city council person, a guy named James, who was shot and killed by one of his constituents, and they all had an X-Lax attack. Oh. So they got metal detectors, they got cops everywhere. These are the people who are defunding the police. These are the people who want less police. But you go to City Hall, there are police in every nook, cranny, and corner. Total hypocrisy. When I'm mayor, I don't need security. I got shot 5 times by the Gaudis through the Gambinos. Took a lick and came back ticking. I don't need an SUV. What do we need an SUV? You taxpayers are paying enough money. I take the subway every day. Wouldn't that be novel that an elected official takes the subway and buses every day, and when they can't get there by subway or bus, they do Uber, Lyft, yellow cab, green cab. There's so many ways to get around. But they think they're entitled. I'm entitled to one thing. My parents entitled me to life. It's then up to me to do something about what I'm going to do for my life. Either I'm going to be productive or destructive.
That's right.
I'm going to be selfish, or I'm going to think about us and we, not I and me. And I'll leave you on this note, because it all starts with our parents. They were my role models, Chester and Francesca, who are no longer here. My father was a merchant seaman for 55 years.
Wow.
My mother took care of the 3 of us, myself and 2 sisters. They were my role models. They taught me 2 things. Curtis, where there is a will, there is a way. If you do the hard work, we'll support you and you'll find the way. But if you're a slacker, a deadbeat, or a gold brick, forget about it. I guess nobody taught Bill de Blasio that. And then finally, and this is my golden rule, and I say it all the time. Curtis, if you do good things for people, good things will happen to you. Don't ask when, where, why, or how. Just accept it and keep doing good. And why did I believe that? Because I saw my parents doing that. I had the role models.
That's beautiful.
The problem in our city is we are absent role models for our children and our citizens. And whereas our sports stars and everybody says, I'm not a role model, I'm not a role model, Curtis Sliwa as a mayor is going to be a role model for a city. I'm going into retail stores, I'm going to restaurants, I'm going to bars. I'm going to go where I know the media is going to follow me. And I'm going to say, New York is open for business, we're back at it, we're going to be the greatest city in the world again. And we're going to be proud.
I have a whole new respect for this man. You're a great speaker. You really are. You're amazing. But here's the thing that struck me the most. He's talking about these 40 guys in the dining room that were attacking you. I'm thinking about the 51 city council members. And I'm trying to figure out how is anybody going to get them to change? You can do it. Because you dealt with those 40 guys and the criminals in the cafeteria. These other, forgive me, these other...
The milk toast of the city council.
Whatever we call them. These city council members that are passing these bills that are destroying our quality of life in our city, they're going to have to face you, and I don't want to be one of them. Okay, questions for Curtis. There must be questions.
Yeah. You take inspiration from Teddy Roosevelt, who was police commissioner and then mayor, and completely changed the corruption of Tammany Hall in New York.
Well, in fact, next week I have to be at a debate at the Metropolitan Club, which is named after Teddy Roosevelt. The best story about Teddy Roosevelt, the best. The macho, maniacal guy that he was. First of all, he grew up, he was an asthmatic child here in New York City. He was just...
28th Street.
I don't know if you could use this word any longer, runt.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Is that...
His father told him he was a runt.
I may be offending somebody. He was short, had difficult breathing, was abused, meaning bullied, like a lot of kids who were in that state. And he took it into his own hands to go out there and just pull himself up and not become a victim.
Correct.
Not only was he the first police chief in New York, organized the police department, but he went out and he looked into the slums at night.
Yes.
And he checked on the coppers
The cigar
who were cooping out, who
Yeah.
were sleeping, and say, "Hey, buddy, you're sleeping on the taxpayer's dime." And when he ran for the presidency, remember, he became president because of the assassination, youngest president ever at that time. And he ran again.
And then they tried to assassinate him.
Right. Had an opportunity to run again, right? He said, no, I'm not going to run. Okay, so he goes off. He's in the interior. He's traveling the world. He comes back. He wants to run again. Republicans say, no. Sorry. You want to bust the trust? You want to be a reformer, a reform Republican? No. We have our own candidate. So he set up the Bull Moose Party. Remember?
Correct.
And he's going and he's campaigning. And I think he was outside some gin mill in Milwaukee, where like every other block they got 3 gin mills. And he's giving a speech. And the guy at the saloon owner takes a gun and shoots him. And luckily, his speech in his pocket
Exactly.
No way.
Yeah. Stop the bullet.
No way.
Yeah.
kept the bullet from completely entering into his
And
breastplate.
there's a picture of the speech with the
Right.
bullet.
And he went on and gives a speech. Now,
He was bleeding. He was wounded. And
that's
he gave
a,
his
that's a
speech.
tough guy,
Yeah.
right? That's a man's man.
That's right.
Yes, I would be honored to
He
walk
took
in his
a
footsteps.
licking and came back kicking.
And at the White House, a lot of people don't know this. Former President Trump, he was not pet friendly, as you know. No dogs, no cats. You know that Teddy Roosevelt had 28 different animals at the White House, indoors and
He
outdoors.
loved animals. He shot them, killed a lot of them. He was a hunter.
He was. I need a larger place to live.
What was
As
the different
Nancy mentioned, we live in a 320 square foot apartment between Columbus and Central Park West on West 87. We share it with 13 rescued cats. I desperately need Gracie Mansion for cats indoors, dogs outside. You know, my wife is great. Not only is she running for the city council on the Upper West Side as a Republican, nobody has run for 10 years as a Republican. It's basically been, you run as a Democrat, you're elected. She's finally decided to challenge the Democrats who just think they got it like that. But she's also the leader of our Guardian Angel Animal Protection Division. And in our household, thank God, Nancy, I have double hernias every day. She changes the litter twice a day. That's the worst job.
That's tough.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Nick. Question.
Curtis, I've got a slew of questions from a bunch of colleagues who are veterans, who are scientists, who are academicians, who are in the mental health space. I'm not going to ask you them. I'm just going to send it to you somehow. The bottom line question that everyone wants to ask, and again, like I said, my folks are from Brooklyn, they're from the Caribbean, we live here in New York, everyone's here. Everyone's looking to get out of town. The crime rate, as we all know, is through the roof. The taxes from Cuomo and from Blasio, through the roof. You can't get in the subway, you can't do anything around, the rents are off the scale. As mayor, I think everyone here, you've got everyone here's vote. That's a given. I'm gonna talk to you about how we can work together to make you be the next mayor. How are you gonna fix all these things? Because we've lost 1,200,000 people between January 2020 and today. How are we gonna fix that? How are we gonna either get people to come back, get new people to come in, or prevent the bleed that's happening? It's not a bleed anymore. It's a femoral artery that's cut.
Yeah, well, the key is, I don't pretend to know everything. You fill up a room with people who either claim to know or actually do know. And all I'm going to say to them, even if I don't necessarily like their idea on first hearing it, because I tend in my life to listen to something at first, reject it, and then think about it again and say, it's not a bad idea. How are we going to do more with less? We don't have the money. you know, the one-shot fix. It's it. It's like a junkie. We just got the super shot. We got the heroin and cocaine with the stimulus. Trillions. It used to be billions was a lot of money. Now it's trillions. But that's one shot. And as Schumer himself said, oh, this covers the deficit, the debt, and it gives you plenty of money to run the subways and everything. But government mismanages. And you give them money, and they're not satisfied, like, thank you, taxpayers, thank you, appreciate it. No, we're going to raise your taxes even more. So you think about it. They want to take the 1%ers, I call them the 1%ers, who pay 42% of the city income tax, which pays for a lot of services and social services. They want to basically raise the tax on them. Now, these people have an opportunity to leave, especially the pandemic taught us that. The workforce doesn't have to be here. Then you have people who own property. 50% of our budget, which is a $92 billion budget, you look at that and say, you're kidding. We spend $92 billion on what? I don't see it, but it's in the budget. 50% of that is through property tax. Yep. Now you say to yourself, if you strip property away from people, if you advocate to the tenants that they don't pay rent, and you want them to abandon their property or just sell it at a lower price, and remember, a lower price means you get less taxes on the transfer sale, less taxes on the mortgage, less taxes on property tax because the assessed evaluation plummets. This city's going to be Detroit.
Yeah.
And yet, AOC, all out crazy, Alexander Ocasio-Cortez, spews this,
Love you, man.
and the media, they're all like, oh, AOC, please, give us more words of wisdom that drip from your lips. Lady, you must have been drinking some of those drinks that you were serving up as a bartender years ago, because that's crazy.
So,
Bartenders say what people want to hear.
so tell us how we're a small group here, but tell us how we can help you.
Well, the biggest
How can
thing,
we help you get elected?
the biggest thing that I need, Arthur, is I was the last person to start running, as I waited. Our friend John Katsimatidis had said to me, you know, Curtis, I'd really like to run. I ran in 2013 in the Republican primary against Joe Lhota, and he lost. He said, I got one more run in me. I'd like to run. I said, okay, John, if you run, I won't. But I'll stay on the sidelines. And John took his time, considering his possibilities, and then one day he said to me, I'm not running. Your time. But with just days to spare. I've only been running for 30 days. Some of these candidates have been running like 30 years. They've raised all kinds of money. They have what socialists love. They put it into our system. It's called the CFB. If you're a New York City resident, let's say Arthur here. Sometimes he throws nickels around like manhole covers, but let's say Arthur decides, Curtis, I'm going to give you $10 for your campaign. I'm a New York City resident. You know how much they steal from the taxpayers and give to me? Take a guess. What does $10 become?
80,
90.
90. Well, it's your first
Plus 10, right? You can't get a return on Bitcoin like that, cryptocurrency, stocks, bonds, shooting craps or CeeLo, even if you're on a roll in Atlantic City.
Really?
You can't get a return of 8 to 1.
Wow.
So, if you donate $250, you know what I end up with? $2,250. Now, all these other candidates, they're way ahead of me. They're already into the millions. You know, I'm like, oh my God, am I even going to raise 100,000 yet? I've only been doing this 30 days. So how you can help is obviously you can make a donation, go on the card, get you right to the website, or you can become a mini fundraiser yourself. This is what I'm looking to do because I only have 5 weeks. May 17th, I got to have $250,000 from New York City residents in order to qualify for what they call this match. And if I raise $250,000 from local residents,
When?
but you know what that becomes? $2 million.
But you need more than 2
So what I need you all to do, if you're willing to do it, is not only can you donate, but find enough of your fellow New Yorkers where you can bring $1,000 to the table, not from each one. This is $1,000 total. If I get 200 people to do that in the next 5 weeks, that's $200,000. I'll make the match because I already have the $50,000 from local residents. But you got to try your best to do that. And if you're interested, see Nancy and I right at the end of this great event. And all I can say is, if you want to solve the crime problem, and you look at these other candidates, you'll probably be planning on moving if any of them get elected. If I get elected, public order, support in refunding the police is mandate number one, and that's how we get the city back on track.
Thank you, Arthur. Thank you for setting this up.
Yeah, well, Arthur's the
As is the plan, which sounds